The top stories tonight in Y News. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 bans foreign travelers and non-overseas Filipino workers from entering the country starting March 20.
The Philippines records more than 61,000 active cases who are currently ill of COVID-19.
DOH official warns that COVID-19 cases in the country may increase 28 times if variants of concern become dominant. The Serum Institute of India has offered to help the Philippines locally produce its own vaccine.
Scientists plan to build an ark on the moon that could preserve eggs and seeds of millions of Earth species.
And experts discover new fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls in Israel. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, March 17, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. The Philippines may increase the cap on inbound passengers if the daily COVID-19 cases in the country goes down. Meanwhile, the National Task Force Against COVID-19 has temporarily restricted the entry of foreigners and returning Filipinos who are not overseas Filipino workers. Rosa Licons explains why.
The Philippines has set a cap on inbound passengers allowed entry to 1,500 per day. This following the COVID-19 surge in the country. However, Vaccine SAR and National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez mentioned about the possibility of increasing the cap once daily COVID-19 cases go down.
Baka once na nakita po natin na medyo bumaba yung kaso po natin, pwede po natin iakyat siya ng 2,000 and another 3,000.
Based on the government data, 1,200 overseas Filipino workers arrive every day in the country. Meanwhile, the government has banned the entry of foreign nationals and returning overseas Filipinos who are not overseas Filipino workers or OFWs. This is effective from Saturday, March 20 to April 19, 2020.
Naglabas ang National Task Force Against COVID-19, NTF, ng isang kautusan kahapon, 16 ng Marso, na nagpapasamantalang nagsususpinde ng pagbabiyahe sa Pilipinas sa mga dayuhan at returning Filipino overseas, or balikbayans, na hindi kabilang sa kategoryang overseas Filipino workers simula sa Sabado, ika-20 ng Marso hanggang sa ika-11 ng Abril ngayong taon.
This aims to prevent the entry of other coronavirus variants from other countries and further rise of cases.
Considering that we have a continuous surge of cases, ito po yung tinatawag nating major intervention natin para ma-prevent natin yung probability na more or less 3,000 na mga carriers ng mga variants.
Galvez said even returning Filipinos who have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will not be allowed entry since there's still no conclusive evidence to claim that COVID-19 vaccine stops people from spreading the virus. However, some individuals are exempted from the entry ban, including holders of 9E visas or foreign government officials and their family members. Those who will travel to the Philippines for medical repatriation and their escorts are duly endorsed by the Department of Foreign Affairs, Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, or Overseas Workers Welfare Administration. Distressed returning overseas Filipinos endorsed by DFA OU MWA, as well as those who come to the country for emergency and humanitarian cases approved by the National Task Force Against COVID-19. The entry ban is the latest effort of the government to prevent quarantine facilities from being overwhelmed. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
UP Octa Research has warned that COVID-19 cases in the country might surge to 16,000 daily. Joanano tells us why.
If the public will continue to fail to comply with the minimum health standards and if the government will not impose tighter restrictions on international travels, the UP Octa research team is projecting that COVID-19 cases might spike to 6,000 daily by the end of this month and will surge to 16,000 daily cases on the second week of April. This was the group's latest projection amid the rising cases of COVID-19 in the country. Based on the recent comparative study, COVID-19 cases in NCR has doubled in numbers. Data shows that during second week last February, the National Capital Region has an average of 370 daily cases. However, during the same period this month, it has increased to 2,226 cases daily. The reproduction number also went up to 1.96 from the previous 1.07 rate same period last month. This means that a positive COVID-19 patient can infect 2 or more individuals. Occupancy rate among hospitals and ICU beds also shows a significant increase. Although UP Octa recognizes the decision of the National Task Force to prohibit the entry of foreigners and non-overseas Filipino workers for 2 weeks to curb the spread of COVID-19. However, Professor Gov't argues that this is not enough. Instead, the government should reimpose strict international travel restrictions to avoid the possible entry and spread of COVID-19 variants.
I'm just concerned na after the 2-week period, when we lift the sanctions, we'll be back to the same situation as before. And yung recommendation namin is talaga to review the guidelines and protocols for international travelers, because we are concerned that our quarantines and travel protocols are leaky, in the sense na marami nakapasok the variants sa country natin, which, as I mentioned, is disruptive to our economy.
Meanwhile, the UP Octa is yet to assess if the implementation of curfew hours and ban on minors will help in reducing or slowing down COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila.
I think it's a conservative approach, but anything that helps reduce mobility may have an impact on reducing the number of cases or slowing down the trend.
Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The number of new COVID-19 cases in the Philippines has reached the same peak in July last year. Meanwhile, health officials warn that once COVID-19 variants of concern become more dominant, COVID-19 cases in the country may surge to 28 times. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The reported cases these first 2 weeks of March is 2.5 times higher compared to that in the beginning of January, according to Dr. Althea de Guzman, OIC Director 3 of the DOH Epidemiology Bureau. The cases seen in the country yesterday was the same peak of COVID-19 cases in July last year. Based on the DOH's report, this is the same level as the number of COVID-19 infections last year, which the health system capacity of the country almost reached its full capacity.
Kung dati po nagre-reklamang tayo nung simula ng Enero ng around 1,000 cases, napansin nyo naman po siguro no, on average we're reporting 3,000 cases a day. Yung peak natin, yung dami ng taong nagkakasakit in a day, ay kapare nitong March na to ay kasing laki na, no? Kasing taas na ng dami ng taong nagkakasakit na nakita natin nitong August. Ito yung peak natin last year.
Dr. De Guzman explains the reported COVID-19 variants aggravated the increase in fast transmission of COVID-19 cases. 7% of the sequence samples in the country are confirmed cases of COVID-19 variants. But the DOH warns if all sequence samples will turn out to be due to COVID-19 variants of concern, there will be 28 times more COVID-19 infections in the Philippines. This especially now that the country's reproduction number is at 2.
Exponential siya, no? Yung 1 plus 1 plus 1 mo, magiging 20 siya. Dito kasi, since these variants will be 70 times more transmissible, ang RO mo mag-jump siya. it's now from 100 people, we're infecting 195 people. And for each of those 195 people, they're also infecting an additional 195 people. So ang laki nung jump nun. Nagba-branch out siya, no? From just one person, 195.
Dr. De Guzman adds, aside from the public's complacency when cases declined, it seems like people had no fear of getting infected as they are mobilized because of the easing of quarantine protocols.
Nagsimula yung pagtaas ng kaso because of people becoming more mobile, because of more gatherings over the holidays. Nagtuloy-tuloy siya, and that's what we're seeing na we're seeing that the detection, kita na natin itong mga variants. That's one factor ngayon na nagko-contribute, no? So doon sa tuloy-tuloy at mabilis na pagtaas.
Aside from the clustering of COVID-19 cases at home, there are also clustering of cases in workplace. The DOH once again reminds the importance of responsible observance of minimum public health standards because this is the solution to cut the transmission of whichever COVID-19 variant causes infections. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health, or DOH, reported 4,387 new COVID-19 cases today, bringing the country's cumulative total to 635,698. In its latest case bulletin, the DOH said the active cases or still sick patients stood at 61,733, which accounts for 9.7% of the total tally. The DOH said 93% of the active cases have mild symptoms, 3.8% were asymptomatic, 1.2% were in critical condition, 1.3% were severe, and 0.68% have moderate symptoms. It was also shown in the bulletin that the death count increased to 12,866 after 18 more people succumbed to COVID-19. The case fatality rate was at 2.02%, the DOH said. Meanwhile, 374 more patients were cleared from the disease, raising the total number of recovered patients to 561,099, or 88.3% of the country's overall tally.
Local government units in Metro Manila are now requiring public and private establishments to implement the use of contact tracing applications. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
The Caloocan City government has started to implement the Stay Safe app in all public and private establishments, according to Attorney Sikeni Labastilla, contact tracing head of Caloocan City, this to prevent the transmission of COVID-19 and for mandatory contact tracing.
Yung digital logbook and yung blocking those positive cases from entering the establishments, yun malaking tulong yun, no? Kasi at least hindi alam natin na yung digital logbook, papasok talaga sa amin yung positive cases.
Caloocan City residents are advised to download the staysafe.ph application and register to secure a unique QR code to enter establishments. In November last year, the IATF-EID signed a resolution making the use of staysafe.ph mandatory in all national government agencies and instrumentalities and LGUs. Meanwhile, the Quezon City has started enforcing the use of QC Pass in 80,000 business establishments in the city. QC Pass, a contact tracing app powered by SafePass, can help the city keep track of the visitors of every establishment within its jurisdiction.
Sana po ay talaga mag-register kayo, no, sa ating pong QC Pass. Isang beses lang po yung mabigat na registration na maraming tanong. Pero pagkatapos niyan, pagpunta na po ninyo sa iba't ibang lugar, isa-swipe lang po ninyo yung phone nyo and malalaman na automatic na pumunta kayo sa isang lugar. So isang beses lang po tayong mag-fill up.
Digital copies of these logs should be readily available to the City Epidemiology and Disease Surveillance Unit for any given time should contact tracing be necessary. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Local government units in Metro Manila impose different penalties against minors outside residence. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
Residents in the National Capital Region should abide by the ordinances set by the respective local governments, even if the resolution was issued by the Metro Manila Council. And as the local chief executives in the region agree to once again restrict all minors from going outside residence, ordinances were set in every cities and municipality. In Manila, parents who will neglect and let their minor children outside of their home will be penalized with 2,000 to 5,000 peso fine and imprisonment of 1 to 6 months depending on the age of the minor. In Caloocan City, however, parents will only have to face corresponding fines from such violation. While in Pasay City, minors will be brought to the City Social Welfare Development Office within 24 hours upon apprehension if there will be no parents nor relatives who will claim the violator. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte, however, said they decided to reduce the fines to let violators adhere better to the ordinance. From 1,000 to 5,000 pesos, parents of minors caught outside their residence will only have to pay 300 pesos for every violation. Mayor Belmonte explains that they find the policy more effective as most citizens cannot afford to pay the 1,000 fine, where authorities are usually forced to let them get away, as putting them to prison will be riskier.
Kasi yung 300, abot kaya sa kanila, hindi masasabing hindi nila kayang bayaran yan. Pero at the same time, masakit pa rin yan sa kanila. Kasi most people earn about that much a day now during the pandemic. So that's about a day's worth of sweldo.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our 24/7 live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. Chief Implementer and COVID Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. brought positive news from his visit to India. Apart from a signed vaccine supply agreement with the Serum Institute of India, the fellow Asian country also extends its support for the Philippines to produce its own vaccines. Marvin Calas explains why.
There is no mention on the numbers of vaccines that is yet to be procured from India, but the agreement is on its finalization. Undersecretary Galvez is confident that the country's capacity to produce its own vaccine will be met again in partnership with the Serum Institute of India.
Nakita natin noong 1938, Mama Richo, nag-donate tayo ng vaccine sa China. Wow. So yun po, nakita natin po, ang ganda po ng ang ganda ng SII, meron silang 136 na scientists. At gusto nung po tulungan tayo na tayo po ay makapag-produce ng sarili natin bakuna.
This is a step closer on the realization of the government's aggressive strategy to an established and reliable source of vaccine. It is recalled that DOST Undersecretary Rowena Guevara mentioned the country's capacity to become a world vaccine producer with the help of modern technology and the country's quality health workers. The government aims to have a steady supply of vaccines in the country and meet its disease elimination in the year 2022 by using an anti-COVID booster vaccine produced in India.
So meron silang series of 2 more vaccines or even yung tinatawag na Covivax at saka yung RBD at saka RCBG. Ito po yung booster na kahit anong pong klase ng vaccine ang tinurok sa iyo, one time, big time na immunobooster. Ayun ang tinatawag nila RCBG na yun ang bibigay afterwards. Na it can increase your immune system. And ang maganda po, yung nando pa lang daw po sa ilong, nire-reject na niya yung virus.
Based on studies, aside from its ability to strengthen an individual's immune system, the vaccine also eliminates emerging viral variants that renders the existing vaccines ineffective. Marvin Calas, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine government's vaccination program against COVID-19 will not be suspended following reports on the death of a healthcare worker after receiving a dose. In a statement, the Department of Health stressed that the healthcare worker died due to coronavirus disease and not due to COVID-19 vaccine, based on the investigation conducted by the regional and national AEFI committees. The health worker who died on March 15 tested positive for COVID-19, the agency said. This is the first reported death following vaccination in the country.
6 villages in the city of Manila are now under lockdown amid increasing cases of novel coronavirus disease in the country. JP Nunez reports.
There are no pedestrians outside the streets. The establishments has been closed. Only police personnel and barangay officials are roaming around corners in 6 barangays under lockdown in the city of Manila. These barangays recorded not less than 10 cases of COVID-19 that were already sent to a quarantine facility. Only authorized persons outside of residences or APOR are allowed to go out, and security officials individually check their IDs. Some people working in Barangay 628 pled to go inside but were not allowed. However, the chairman of the barangay gave them options whether to stay inside or go back after the lockdown.
Pwede naman kayo papasokin nila ngayon, sabi niya, kaya hindi natin pwedeng palabasin. Makakalabas kami after ng quarantine. Ipagpaliban na lang po yung trabaho namin, siguro mga after nung lockdown. Saka namin tapusin yung pag-disinfect namin dun sa sa tindahan namin.
Kung di nila alam na mayroon lockdown dito sa Barangay 628, dito sa barangay na pinahawakan ko, na pinamunuan ko, may mili lang sila kung pasok sila, hindi na sila makakalabas. Or, sa labas sila, hindi sila papasok, hintayin nila matapos yung lockdown period.
A 14-day quarantine in an isolation facility is the possible sanction for breaching lockdown protocols, but the city police has not yet reported any violators. The granular lockdown on 6 barangays will be imposed until March 20. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Some senators question the 10 billion peso proposed rescue package to help distressed companies and small businesses in the country recover from the effects of the pandemic. According to one lawmaker, the amount is a joke. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
The Senate Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies continued its hearing on the proposed rescue package for companies and small businesses that have been affected by the pandemic. The bill, the Government Financial Institutions Unified Initiatives to Distressed Enterprises for Economic Recovery or GUIDE Act, was passed at the House of Representatives last month. The proposed measure aims to infuse 10 billion pesos into state-run financial institutions, the Land Bank of the Philippines, and the Development Bank of the Philippines. The two banks will establish a special holding company that will assist strategically important companies or SICs from priority sectors that are experiencing temporary solvency issues. Based on the estimates of Land Bank, over 100,000 employees might lose their jobs if some 15 companies that are potential beneficiaries of the program will close down, while around 1,250 companies, which currently employ 6.3 million employees, might also seek the help of the program. However, for Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon, the 10 billion peso allocation is not enough.
I am tempted to say, and I'm saying it, that 10 billion as a rescue package is a joke. We should provide more assistance provided there are safeguards. Huwag naman yung 10 billion lang. We should assist our companies more because they are the generators of our economy. 10 billion is just 1/2 of the anti-insurgency fund of 19.5 billion, which to me is a pork barrel.
The Bureau of Treasury explains it is the only amount that they can carve out as of the moment.
Kahit po ganun ka-small lang ang amount that we are providing for these SICs, given po yung kanilang importance in the economy, ay malaki po ang kanilang magiging resulta if we will not also assist these companies.
Meanwhile, Senator Amy Marcos bats for clearer provisions on how the bill will help the micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. The National Treasury says none of the 10 billion peso allocation will be allocated for the MSMEs, as there were already rescue provisions for them under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, also known as the Bayanihan 2. The guide bill seeks to give tax exemptions and fee privileges to MSMEs for them to avail lower costs of borrowing. The Senate panel chairperson, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, says they will study the possibility of increasing the 10 billion peso proposed capital infusion to be able to help more businesses to stay afloat and recover. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God. The Philippine National Police committed to expedite the investigation on the incidents and cases of violence against legal professionals in the country. Leia Ilagan explains why.
The Philippine National Police and Integrated Bar of the Philippines met on Tuesday to renew their commitment to work together and strengthen their communication line. In a joint statement, the PNP and IBP said they will collaborate to address the number of cases surrounding the death of judges, prosecutors, and members of the legal profession over the past several years. The data from the Free Legal Assistance Group, 61 lawyers have been killed since 2016. IBP President Attorney Domingo Cayosa pledged to provide legal assistance to qualified police officers who are unjustly harassed while performing their duties. Attorney Cayosa also said they will help improve the legal knowledge and skills of police officers. General Eliasar also committed in providing timely assistance to lawyers, prosecutors, and judges in distress or danger. Eliasar said members of the legal community will be assisted in the processing of application for gun license and permit to carry firearms outside of residence. Last week, the IBP expressed concern following the letter of an intelligence officer addressed to a Calbayog City Court asking for the identification of the lawyers representing the CPP-NPA. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, Facebook has launched a global campaign to help millions of people get vaccinated and fight misinformation. Nina Bascon tells us why.
With the rising concerns of some people over COVID-19 vaccine's adverse effects and the community's willingness to voluntarily receive the jab, Facebook has initiated a global campaign that aims to help people get vaccinated. One of the main new features is the COVID-19 Information Center, which will appear on a user's news feed. The tool will give users information about where and when to get vaccinated. It will also be available in 71 different languages. Facebook will also add labels on posts about vaccines with information from the World Health Center. It's part of Facebook's effort to stop the spread of misinformation. The campaign that will pilot in the US will also be expanded to Instagram and WhatsApp. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg hopes these tools will help bring 50 million people a step closer to getting vaccinated. Meanwhile, in Australia, Facebook and News Corp have signed a 3-year deal under the News Media Bargaining Code, which will allow Facebook to publish news content from 70% of the publishers in Australia and compensate them. The amount of the deal has not been disclosed to the public, but News Corp Chief Executive Robert Thompson said that this is a landmark in transforming the terms of trade in journalism. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
A team of researchers from the University of Arizona has proposed a lunar arc for preserving samples of 6.7 million Earth species in the event of a global crisis. Marvin O'Finn will give us the details live. Marvy?
Yeah, the proposal may sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the ambitious project presented at the IEEE Aerospace Conference over the weekend is surprisingly realistic, and the scientists behind the idea believe the endeavor could safeguard Earth's biodiversity against both natural and human-caused disasters. Professor of Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering Jekan Thanga and a group of his undergraduate and graduate students has taken scientific inspiration from an unlikely source, the biblical tale of Noah's Ark. However, instead of rounding up 2 of every animal, they suggest storing cryogenically frozen samples of the necessary reproduction components of up to 6.7 million species, such as spores, seeds, sperm, and eggs, in an underground facility on the moon powered with solar panels on the surface. The moon has cave-like networks of hollowed-out lava tubes created billions of years ago on its surface that the lunar ark could be placed in, and robots would be sent inside the tubes to start building the ark. This gene bank would serve as a DNA repository that could help repopulate Earth should some species fail to adapt to a changing worldwide event such as global warming. Kath, this is not the only ark of its kind. On Earth, we have examples such as Norway's Svalbard Global Seed Vault, which has a storage capacity of 4.5 million seed samples and has housed well over 4,000 individual species. Though Tanga's team theorized that it is safer for such a doomsday vault to be located on a celestial body in case Earth is totally annihilated. Not all of the technology needed to build the Ark exists yet, but scientists think it could be made within the next 30 years, and it would take at least 250 rocket trips to the moon to complete the mission. Some construction is already scheduled to take place on the moon for another project. Kath?
All right, Marvy, thank you for that report. For the first time in 60 years, archaeologists discovered dozens of Dead Sea Scroll fragments containing biblical text dated around the 1st century in a cave in Israel. Early Briones will give us the details live. Early?
A recent announcement was made by the Israel Antiquities Authority, or IAA, on Tuesday about the newly recovered pieces of the ancient Dead Sea Scroll found in the Cave of Horror in the Judean desert in Israel. The cave, which can be reached by rappelling down, was roughly 80 meters below the cliff, was named due to the 40 human skeletons found there during excavations in the 1960s. The new biblical fragments are believed to be hidden there during a Jewish revolt against Rome around 1,900 years ago. These feature biblical books of Zechariah and Nahum written in Greek, match other fragments found several years ago and believed to be part of a bigger parchment. The IAA also explained in a statement that the new scroll in Greek included the name of God in ancient Hebrew letters. The archaeological excavation is a project to find prehistoric and biblical relics, supported by the IAA and military branch for civil affairs in the Palestine territories. In a press release, IAA Director Israel Hassan said that the excavations started in response to robbers and that the significant discovery should be prompt the continuation of the project and call for the state to provide more resources and support. The discoveries not only include the scroll fragments but also several artifacts such as a 6,000-year-old mummified skeleton of a child, arrowheads, coins, and the woven basket believed to be around 10,500 years old. Kat?
Thank you, Early Briones, for that live report. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Kat Dumaraos, live from Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening.
The PNP deems the use of police body cameras beneficial for when police officers conduct their operations. Thea Ilagan explains why.
The public has seen several controversial and questionable police operations recently. The shootout between police officers and PDEA agents in Quezon City, and the bloody arrest of militant group members in Calabar Zone are just two examples. This is why it is beneficial if operations of the Philippine National Police used body cameras. The PNP believes that the use of body cameras could remove the public's doubt.
So, yun po yung magiging kasangga po namin. Kasi there are instances po, in my experience sa field, na legitimate naman po yung operation namin at meron kaming video at may picture po.
Video footage recorded by the body cameras could also be used as evidence in case the police need to defend themselves in connection with what transpired in an operation.
So ito po yung malaking depensa po para sa regularity po ng police operation namin sa field po.
The National Capital Region Police Office will be the first to use body cameras in April with 648 units. Each unit has a live streaming capability, sent to and monitored at PNP command centers or local monitoring units. Those body cameras can also record videos up to 8 hours. This will also be equipped with SIM cards that would be used to feed videos to the PNP Command Center. NCRPO police officers have completed training and are ready to use body cameras. The PNP has procured 2,686 body cameras from San Juan City-based EVI Distribution Incorporated. The contract price for the body camera system is 288 million pesos, which include taxes, duties, maintenance, and its data system. Although the allotted budget was 334 million pesos, which leaves 45.1 million pesos of that budget unused for the procurement. However, Police Major General Angelito Casimiro has confirmed that the PNP will acquire 10 deployable CCTV with artificial intelligence capability utilizing the unused portion of the budget.
Pwede mong i-program doon yung 200 na faces ng mga wanted person. Pwede pong local terrorist, pwedeng foreign terrorist kung meron pong files tayo. At pag dumaan po yung tao doon, sasabihin po niya doon sa control na nandun lang sa vicinity niya that this person is 90% o 92% o 94% similar po doon sa taong hinahanap nyo. So, sa atin po sa law enforcement, yung rate po ng efficacy natin is dapat 90% paakyat para related talaga kasi yung biometrics po nung tao ang tinitignan ng system.
Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a group of lawyers believe that it is high time for the Philippine National Police to use their body cameras in different operations, such as serving search warrants. Dante Amento tells us why.
The National Union of People's Lawyer or NUPL has denounced the alleged irregularities in some operations conducted by law enforcers. These include planting of evidence and subjects in search warrants allegedly fighting back, which resulted to their death. Thus, the group welcomes the latest pronouncement made by the Supreme Court that it is considering a proposal to require law enforcers to use body cameras in serving warrants, and that the SC on its own took the initiative underlines seriousness of the issue. Last week, lawyers who are petitioners of the Anti-Terror Act also urged the Supreme Court to review the guidelines of search warrants application and the body cameras for the operatives.
Kung gagawin ng Supreme Court halimbawa na i-require lahat ng service ng search warrant na may body cameras, lahat ng police officers o law enforcement officers na mag-serve ng search warrant na yan, maiiwasan natin yung mga gawa-gawang istorya, no?
Meanwhile, the Alliance of Concerned Teachers or ACT Teachers believes it is necessary to have an independent body to manage the cameras to avoid possible alteration, particularly of its content.
Kasi kung yung pag-control ay ibibigay sa mismong gagamit, kasi you can manipulate it, no? So mainam na yung usapin ng control at management nito ay hindi hawak ng mga gumagamit.
The issue on search warrants and body cameras got highlighted when 9 activists in the Calabarzon area were killed in separate police operations last March 1. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
More than 30,000 Filipinos in Israel received free Pfizer vaccine to protect them against COVID-19. The free inoculation is part of the Israel government's vaccination drive to immunize all residents in the country regardless of their citizenship status. Filipinos with expired working permits, as well as the staff of the Philippine Embassy in Israel, also received the free Pfizer shots. Israel Ambassador to Manila, Rafael Harpaz, said this free access to vaccines is another way of expressing Israel's gratitude to the overseas Filipino workers, particularly caregivers working in their country. With a population of 9.3 million, Israel has vaccinated 5.2 million people, more than a half of its population, with at least one dose. And those are the reasons behind the news, March 17, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. Evangelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.